Hello, everyone. I'm Dian Griesel. Some people think of me as Silver Disobedience. This is the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast, and I'm really excited. We're recording this in Manhattan Center right now. We're in TV2, and so this is a big development for this podcast and an exciting one. But what has me even more excited today? You know, I'm 64. And I can say that every day after 40, when I had my first child, and then a second at 43, fitness has become a real personal challenge. Everything I ate seems to linger a little longer. The amount of time at the gym seems to take a little more time. And the recovery is a whole other story. You know, sometimes I think I can just skip 3 days, go back and, feel great. And the next day I pay for that poor decision. So I have two people here today that I actually met on Instagram. So when they say you can't meet people on Instagram, that's also not true. You can. And the two people I met are Ryan Harden, who is a fitness model with Wilhelmina. He's a fitness trainer and he's a fitness expert. So he is my guest directly next to me. I also have Angelique Miles, who I have done some campaigns with. She is a fitness influencer in the 50 plus crowd. And so I'm really excited to learn more about what she has to say about being 50 plus. And even more interesting, we're going to start with the fact, because you're going to get to see what she looks like in moments, if you haven't seen her already, depending on how this is getting edited. But if you haven't seen her yet, let me just say 11 months ago, did I say 11 months ago? Yes. She had a brain tumor. So this is a woman that was in shape, had a brain tumor, had surgery, and she's back here looking just as fine. So Angelique,
yes.
How do you look this good? What's the secret? 11 months ago's brain surgery, and here you are today.
You know, it's the actual anniversary, 11-month anniversary today. I had it on April 25th. And I don't know, Diane, I just kept going. You know what I mean? My doctor, my surgeon, upon immediate release from the hospital, he's like, walk 30 minutes twice a day, as much as you can. So I started day one from the hospital, walking on the treadmill. I had to hold on because I had no balance and someone had to walk with me. But I started day one. And 2 weeks later, he said, you can lift light weights. So I lifted light weights. And then at 6 weeks, they were like, go all out as much as whatever you want to do. So that's what I've been doing.
Oh my gosh, we're coming back to that. Ryan, can you imagine having a client like this? What would you say to this client?
Probably something similar. You know, I'm a big advocate of always trying to move or do what you can do with what you can. So, but I think that's amazing that you were able to, fight through that adversity and keep moving. That's amazing.
I'm still fighting because I still don't have the balance, as we discussed previously in the hearing, so my equilibrium's off. So I'm still fighting through that. And I was very weak at that 6 week point, because I hadn't worked out a lot prior to that because I had trigeminal neuralgia, which is another issue with facial nerves. So I hadn't really been working out too much prior to my surgery. So I felt like I was severely out of shape. I wasn't out of shape for some, I guess, but it took me a couple of months to really get back in the swing of things.
And as she was saying, you can't tell that you've missed a beat.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's a blessing.
Exactly. I encourage you all to follow Angelique Miles and Ryan Harden, and all their info will be below in this podcast, because I've seen them both in bikinis, or
you wear bikinis, right?
Well, whatever you
We need
call
a little
those,
edit there.
whatever you call those super short shorts that guys wear, and I'm telling you, they are inspiring. So I want to know what brought you both. I'm turning it over to you. I want to know what brought you both to your fitness journey. So let's start with you on that, Ryan.
Well, growing up, I was a pretty chubby kid. So kind of around through high school when I started to be attracted to women, they were kind of like, oh, he's cute, but he's chubby. And it bothered me a lot in the back of my head. And so I got into sports, started to play football, did a little bit of track, and puberty started to hit. And I never liked working out in high school. When I played football, I would skip. I didn't like it. The coaches yelling at me, and I just didn't like it. And but after I graduated, I got into MMA. And so I started to weight train for MMA. And I actually fell in love with weight training, just listening to music. I started to work at a gym underneath a bodybuilder, and he kind of took me in, taught me a lot of stuff. I worked at a GNC where I learned a bit about nutrition. And then after that, I just went to the next level. I went to the school at University of Kentucky for dietetics, and it just kind of went to the next level after that. Yeah.
Wow. How about you, Angelique? What was your? I know you had a background in not fitness.
Yes. Well, it's there's two prongs to this. I danced when I was much younger, like from 6 to 16. I danced, but at 13, I was diagnosed with psoriasis, which is an autoimmune condition that affects the skin. So from that point, I like to call my journey a wellness journey, not just a fitness journey, because I was trying to heal myself from that point as much as I could. I was doing all the research I could, and I did everything, every diet you could imagine. But fitness was a big part of it because I was very slim. I was very slim, and I wanted to shape my body. So in my 20s, I was doing things like Lottie Burke. Do you remember the Lottie Burke method? Yeah. I did the Lottie Burke method. Wow. I was devout. I really loved bar classes back then. But I also had a trainer at certain points too. So I was always working on myself, trying to shape my body. Then, I was in the music industry around this time, and after my music industry career ended, I wanted to do something that I could control because it was a very difficult time for me, and I wasn't getting the callbacks that I used to. I was, jobless, trying to get back in, and my body was the one thing I could control. And my body started changing around this time because I was perimenopausal, and being thin all my life, after you gain 7 pounds in 6 months, you're like, what's happening? And my mom's like, well, that's how it starts. My mom was like, that's how it starts. I was like, I'm not going out like that. So I was like, I have to get more aggressive with my workouts. So CrossFit was what I did. I got into CrossFit. And the workouts were so insane to me. I was like, they were like, run 2 miles,
Right.
come back and do 50 kettlebell swings, then do it again. And I was like, okay, somebody needs to know I did this. So that's when I started posting my workouts, because I'm like, this is insane. Someone needs to know. So I got into CrossFit, and from that point, my posts started resonating with people, and I was like, okay, I'm really onto something. But it was really about me. It wasn't really about impressing anyone else. I was like, I just want to be really fit and look the way I want to look going into my 40s and 50s.
It's so funny you talk about MMA and CrossFit, and I go back, I remember I worked at a health club in the late 1970s, and they were the first health club to have Nautilus equipment.
Oh, wow.
Which was the precursor to like the Lifetime or whatever that equipment was,
remember.
And all the the purple stuff you see now. And it's so funny because, when I watched, because that was really, obviously there was Jack LaLanne, which was way before even my time. So, but I watched Jack LaLanne, and I paid so close attention to him because he said such smart things like, you didn't get out of shape in a day, you're not going to get in shape in a day. So smart things to remember. But what, you found your kind of marks in fitness, but where do you find your day going when it shapes around fitness? Like, do you work out in the morning? You're working with clients. Like, how do you fit it all in? How do you tell people to fit it in if they want to be fit?
Well, for me, if it doesn't get done in the morning, it doesn't get done. So it's the first thing I do when I wake up. well, not the first thing. I pray, I meditate, I have a ritual that I do. And then my workout clothes are all hung up. So I get to see, I have to walk past my workout clothes in the morning. So I put them on immediately. So that's the first thing I do. And I have a trainer, so I have someone to meet at a certain time every day. So that's important to me. And before I had a trainer, I took classes that I also had to pay for and be, show up on time for. So that helps me, but it has to be done in the morning. I am not an afternoon workout person. I am not an evening workout person. It has to be done in the morning for me.
How about you, Ryan?
Ideally, I would also be a morning workout person, but sometimes with my schedule, I have a lot of one-on-one clients that I train. So because of that and other things that I'm interested in, like the stock market hours and different things like that. And so I bend my schedule to where I can fit it in slots where I don't have clients or I'm not doing other things. But I used to always be a big morning workout person, and I've tried to step back from that to focus a bit more on business, but I always make time for it, even if it's an hour or I have a 45-minute gap. I may do something more intense, something more like CrossFit, HIIT. If I have a bit more time, then I may take my time. And so I make it happen regardless of my schedule. I'll fit it in.
Now, Ryan, you're about 32, I believe?
32.
32. Angelique, you're in your early 50s.
Late.
Late 50s?
I'll be 59 this year.
Oh my gosh. I've known you a while now.
Yes, we've known each other for a while.
How time flies.
Yeah, it does.
59.
I was
Wow.
59 in August, yeah.
I feel like I remember you posting for your 50th birthday.
Yeah, I think that's around the time we met, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, it flew by.
Okay. So each decade, obviously Ryan's coming from a younger perspective, but your 20s or your teens, guys, they talk about, you don't hit your man body till you're like in your early 20s, let's say, or maybe mid 20s, late 20s. I don't know. I never had to get a man body, but you hit different milestones. Women, you have maybe childbearing years, or you have menopause, or just plain hormonal changes that happen over the years. What would you say fitness-wise to someone who's in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s on what to think about and how it would vary? I'd love both your opinions on this in any way you want to throw them out.
Well, in my opinion, each stage of life, your values should change. So when I was a teen, when I thought about working out, I mostly thought of aesthetics. I want to look like this superhero, or I want to be attractive. I want my arms to look a certain way. Now that I'm 32, my values, when people ask me, Ryan, are you trying to get bigger? A lot of my workouts are designed for my mental health. I put my music in and I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to relieve some stress. I still have challenging workouts, but the goal isn't so much, I want my arms bigger. It's more so for my mental health these days. And then when I'm working with people who, they may be 40 years old and I'm like, well, what are you trying to do? Why are you here? Some people, they want to get their blood pressure down. Some people want an outlet. Some people want to get their waist smaller. So your values in different ages or phases of your life usually change. I think that they should change. It's a good sign of growth, and so that's something to keep in mind. And also, maybe you wake up and you're getting aches. Maybe you haven't weight trained. You need to get stronger, more resilient. So I try to remind people that when they're teens, but usually they're so focused on the aesthetics. And so it's a hard it's a hard message to get through, but as they get older, they usually start to realize those things. And so regardless, you're exercising, you're working out, but it's normal to see people's values change in different ages, phases of their life.
What do you think? Yeah, that's a really good answer.
That is a really good answer.
What do you think,
Because
Angelique?
in retrospect, when I started working out in my late 30s, early 40s, the CrossFit thing was definitely a stress release thing for me, because I was under so much stress at that time. Well, let me just say that for me, it's still about aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's always
want to look
always
good.
about aesthetics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want my waist to be smaller. I want my butt to be lifted because that's the first thing to go.
Yeah. I was just joking with someone the other day. I said, I understand that Sophia Loren line. It's either you have to choose at some point your butt or your face. Because I'm like, well, I'm about 5 pounds heavier, but
yeah.
wow, is my skin looking much better? But my butt sure
The
isn't.
glutes are the first thing to go. I will tell you, that thing will start dragging on you
Starts dragging on you.
before you realize it. So my advice is in your 30s and 40s, definitely work on your glutes. Make sure those are lifted. But like I said, in my 40s, I started going through perimenopause, I guess.
Yeah.
So your body starts changing. And as soon as I got the hang of a certain kind of workout, my body would change again, you know? So I would say the 50s have been the most challenging time for me to work out because I'm always trying to figure out what's going to work now or what's, and I find that in my 50s, now that I'm postmenopausal, I don't do as much cardio because I was I would do boot camp classes and that was never, I did run a half marathon, but I've never really been a runner, but I would try to run a little bit. But now it's about lifting really heavy, maybe 2 days of HIIT per week and walking. But I don't do the crazy cardio classes that I used to do.
Can you define what HIIT is for people who don't know?
HIIT is high intensity interval training. So you're getting your heart rate up for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're resting. Also with HIIT.
And that's with weights?
No, that could be the assault bike, that could be sprints, that could be
rope.
You're just getting your heart rate
30 seconds as high as you can get your heart rate up.
And then complete rest. Well, they say for postmenopausal women, because some people do HIIT 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or a minute off. Postmenopausal women, we're supposed to get our heart rate up and then complete rest until we're ready to go all out again. It's interesting because, we lose muscle.
So I go 30 seconds and I can start again tomorrow.
Until you're
Ready to go again.
well, we want to see results. But, because we're losing so much muscle mass as we get older, we're trying to just maintain the muscle mass. And if you do too much cardio, you start burning muscle.
Yeah, the muscle mass loss is, I think, the biggest shock with aging. I mean, I competed in local bodybuilding contests in like the early 1980s. And I mean, I had thighs that looked like tree trunks. Now I look at my thighs and I'm like, what the heck happened to my thighs? I mean, they're like these chicken.
I lift weights and my legs are still thinner. Like, even with
it's
lifting.
really fascinating to see that muscle loss that you don't expect to see.
Yeah.
But it happens. It's real.
Yeah. So that's it's always changing. So, but now it's about heavy lifting, protein intake. I try to count my macros, but it's really about caloric intake, they say. So, but I still live a little. Since before the surgery.
I've seen some good trips you've taken.
I take great trips.
I think you made a promise to yourself. What was it?
Yes.
Once a quarter, you were going to go on a trip with some friends, or how do you work?
Twice a year. That are non-negotiable. That's New Year's Eve, and preferably Jamaica.
Yeah.
Or anywhere there's a beach, tropical beach. And then for my birthday, I'm never here.
There you go. I remember.
But then I travel other times during the year too. But those 2 points of the year are non-negotiable for me.
Gotta love a tropical beach.
Yeah.
I need that. I need to spend the last day of the year like that and the first day of the year like that. So that's been my tradition for some years now.
That's a good one. I'm curious. There's, as I said, I met you both via Instagram, possibly the first time. Then we waved on 42nd Street, and I saw you at a shoot or some event for some brand. There's so many fads and things that happen on social media. We should try this kind of training, or we should eat this way, or you should be high protein or high fat or low fat or high carb or whatever. I mean, it goes on and on and on. What would you say are your personal diets, and do you think they transcend to people you might coach or advise? What would your recommendations be, since you're both fine specimens of the human body?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say, when looking at social media, I think we have to keep in mind that a lot of times, and even myself can be guilty of this, we may post something for shock value or to get views or to get in the algorithm. And a lot of times, I don't know if the average person has that in mind when they're viewing content. So you get that a lot sometimes with diets, where you may hear a guy say you should never eat eggs, and then you hear someone say you should eat eggs every morning, and then someone saying you shouldn't eat plants, and then someone saying you should be a vegetarian. And so the way that I like to eat primarily is just healthy, whole foods with limited ingredients. Probably single ingredient would be best. And then go from there. If I can do that 80% of the time, if it's something on a weekend where my friends are in town and we want to go out to eat, I enjoy myself. I don't feel guilty to where I'm in this spiral. The next day I'm not eating, and then I have one meal because yesterday I had a slice of pizza, So if you can primarily eat healthy whole foods, single ingredient, I think that you'll be in a very good position. And then after that, you can kind of go from there, give yourself some wiggle room.
Nice common sense answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Angelique?
Well, he's a professional, so I have to agree with Ryan. But no, for me, of course, whole foods as often as possible. I even use a meal delivery service because that makes it easier for me to get the food I know that I need and the amount of protein and things like that I need. Protein is important for me over 50 because of the muscle mass issue. So I try to get my body weight in protein grams per day.
And question, with you, because a lot of women that I work with, they get scared when they hear that, like protein. So when you talk to other women or women talk to you and they aspire to you, when you tell them, I prioritize protein, what is their usual reaction to that?
They're like, how do you get that in a day? And I will admit that some days it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have the meal plan that I had, you have to plan. Otherwise, it doesn't usually happen for me. But I do supplement it with protein shakes. You'd be surprised how much protein is in a palm-sized amount of chicken or fish. Or I just have to have protein. I try to have protein every meal, whether it's a snack or breakfast, lunch, dinner. And I supplement it with shakes. And there's, you can have a shake to go. I make shakes at home, but I'm counting the protein as I go along.
So you're counting grams of protein
Yes.
as your visual for where you want to be in a day.
Yes, like today I've probably had like 80 grams so far.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another 80 to go. Because I'm about 160
Wow,
pounds.
that's that's a big number to hit in protein.
It really was.
What does
because
that look like
I had
you?
eggs and turkey sausage for breakfast, and I had a protein shake. So that's about that. And then I had like a boiled egg, like 2 boiled eggs before I came here. So that's another. And I'll have, I have like 2 more meals and a snack today. It'll work out. It'll come together.
Yeah. It's interesting with that. I was talking with a friend of mine who recently had a baby. Baby's maybe right about a year old. And she ended up having a stroke a couple of months ago. And she has gone on a diet of basically steak and eggs. And I have never seen someone leaner and more fit looking, and her only exercise is she's walking all over New York with a stroller. I'm like, that's the best argument for steak and eggs that I have ever seen.
That's all protein. That's almost all,
And I'm like, I don't think I can imagine doing it. I can think of some salads I would miss. But I can't argue with and you have Jordan Peterson who says he follows that diet, and it's an interesting.
remember, it was the Atkins diet in our day.
Yes, Atkins,
It was
and
Atkins.
Stillman, depending on whose mother was doing what.
Right.
Tuna and cottage cheese. I said that to my husband the other day. I'm like, I'm thinking I might try what my mother did, some tuna and cottage cheese. He's like, that sounds disgusting. And I said, well, that's actually what I always thought when she ate it, but we ate it for dinner with big iceberg lettuce leaves, and it was delicious.
That's
Shocking. But what do you think about that? Do you eat a gram of protein a day? I mean, or a gram of protein for your body weight?
Yeah, so I probably take in around 215 to 230 grams a day.
Wow.
So, very similar, very similar.
You know, looking at the musculature on you both, I would be very hard pressed to argue that it certainly doesn't look like it's not working for you. I'm curious, blood work. Do you ever go get blood work done? That's always what I do.
yeah.
You can take any blood you want from me.
I had my blood
always.
work done probably maybe 5 months ago, and the doctor said it's pristine. Yeah. And I eat eggs every morning. So, yeah.
I have blood work done often because of my psoriasis, so I'm on a biologic for that, and then also I'm on, this is off topic, but I'm on HRT, so I have to have my blood taken every 3 to 6 months.
You know, I'm always interested in fads, trends. Obviously, you can't go online and not see. Everyone's telling you, eat more of this, eat more of that, which you were prefacing earlier when you were talking about your own diet. What do you think the most hurtful trends that people are adopting because someone's telling them this is the way to get thin? Because that's probably the number one thing everyone's looking for. They're not necessarily saying this is the number one way to get healthy.
I don't know, I just think anything done to the extreme is error, so I don't really pay attention to the fads much, but I would imagine like if you're doing something extreme, it's probably not good or not long lasting.
I think that's good advice to keep in mind.
Yeah, I would probably second that. It's hard to pinpoint one thing that I see that I'm like, this is the number one. But usually anything that's really radical, extreme, it's probably not something you can sustain, and it's probably not healthy. And you'll probably have some sort of rebound, is what I notice a lot.
Is there any food group that you think is absolutely off limits?
No.
I like that answer.
I don't restrict, I don't deprive myself. Like if I really want something, I'll have it. I just won't, like if I want potato chips, I won't eat the whole bag. I'll have a few potato chips if I'm craving it. You know what I mean? I don't believe in depriving yourself of everything in that way, and everything in moderation a bit, But what was the question? Yeah, nothing's really off limits like that to me. It's just too much of it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That moderation idea.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ryan? Anything off
Well,
limits for you?
I think that we can sit here and name things that are probably less healthy than others. But in practice, when you actually work with people in the real world, it just usually doesn't translate well when you say, don't or never eat this. And so that's where I think kind of like the moderation thing comes into play. It's like if you're on vacation, if you're on your honeymoon, if you're with family around the holidays, are you not going to enjoy a piece of cake? Maybe you have a special moment with your child, just different things like that, to where I do think you should be able to enjoy yourself with whatever it is. Obviously a food group. Now, I don't think you should eat those things regularly, but certain times I think it's okay, especially if you're doing the diligent work of trying to be a healthy person on a daily basis. I think that you're fine to enjoy some potato chips, have a drink, celebrate every once in a while. So I don't like to say this is off limits. Never do it. I don't like to say that.
You mentioned having a drink. What do you think the alcohol impact has been or is for people with fitness, age, and working out? I know I've certainly observed next to a zero tolerance with age. What have you observed, and what would you tell a client that went out the night before and, had a few drinks, and when they should consider their next workout?
So I can usually tell when my when my clients come in the next day and they've been out late. I'm pretty sensitive to their cues, and I can usually tell when they've been drinking.
How would you modify things
You know,
based on that?
like I said, it should be in moderation. And if you know that you have a session in the morning with me, you you shouldn't be out the night before drinking unless, you know, maybe something was going on and you notified me, and we probably shouldn't work out the morning that you're dehydrated, that you are, you know, you're more susceptible to get an injury. Your performance is going to be lower. You probably didn't get into a good REM sleep because of the alcohol. So it may be better for your health and your goals to sleep in, hydrate that day, maybe work out in the evening, or just work out the next day. Because you missing one workout, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but you working out while you're dehydrated, you've had a lot of alcohol or whatever the night before, that could be problematic.
Yeah. You know, I want to come back to that. You walked in with your big pitcher of water. You said the same thing. I've been drinking all morning. I walk around constantly drinking water. Water and dehydration and workouts, muscle and dehydration. What are some thoughts on that?
Well, I try to drink a lot of water because it makes sense that you should drink a lot of water. I try to get in 3 liters a day. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's my goal. But being dehydrated can cause a bunch of other issues. You can get, headaches, and I have dry eye. I get, all kinds of things. And because of some of the supplements I take, I should drink a lot of water, like creatine and things like that. Require that you drink lots of water. So, and it also, if you're bloated, sometimes you would think that water would do the opposite, but water actually
gets rid of the bloat.
Exactly. So, but I don't drink alcohol either. So, and that's only because my brain surgery. I stopped before the surgery, and I haven't missed it. So I haven't gone back to it because we do metabolize alcohol differently as we get older. So.
Yeah, I would second that. Drinking water, and I'll tweak it a little bit to hydration is very important. And the reason I say hydration is because electrolytes play a factor in hydration. So, I mean, we're humans, we're 70-80% water. Even you saying like my eyes itch, water is vital, for our being. And so staying hydrated, so not just water, but, you have magnesium, potassium, sodium. Those all play an aspect in staying hydrated. So hydration is key. It's very important for every biological function that we have. So I can't express enough water. Hydration is important.
I'm just curious, do either of you have any people that really inspired you on a fitness journey?
For me personally, and this is interesting, when I was younger, I was inspired just by, the people in TV shows who were muscular, or when I would open up a book, there'd be like a superhero. And, when you're a young boy, you could probably imagine yourself being a hero or saving the day. And so I think a lot of that for me personally, TV shows, cartoons, things like that, where I would see muscular characters. I always wanted to be that. And so that actually inspired me the most on my fitness journey, more over a single actual person.
With social media now, you see there's so many beautiful people. There's like a gazillion beautiful muscular bodies on social media. I try to not compare myself to women half my age, but
good rule. But you could show quite a few of them up.
Listen, that's not my goal. I wouldn't even try because they're working with different.
We'll change that perception. You could inspire an awful lot of them.
Thank you. But yeah, so I don't know if there's one person. I admire a lot of people. Like it could be someone I don't even know their name. It's like, oh wow, they look incredible. What do they do? But when you're 25 or 30, it's like, you don't really have to do that much.
Right.
I mean, you do, but there are certain things that, like, it would take a lot more for me to reach that than it would for someone half my age. So I admire it, but I'm not like, I want to be that.
You know, it's funny when you talk about the muscular people online. I remember being completely inspired. I had pictures of Rachel McLeish and Corey Everson that I used to cut out their face and put my face on their bodies. And Tanya Knight, you know, in the days of bodybuilding when Arnold was winning.
Like the golden era.
Yes, Arnold's winning, you know, the Mr. Universe and Mr. America. And I'll never forget it, the 1987 Ms. Olympia contest at the Felt Forum. It's no longer the Felt Forum, but where they used to have all the boxing matches and stuff over the year. And Franco Columbo comes out, and he's in this white button-down, perfectly fitted shirt. And the whole audience is screaming, lat pose, lat pose, lat. And he's like, oh, my wife hates when I do this. And he loosens his tie, and he turns around, and he does that. And the shirt splits exactly down the middle. And I'm like, he'd have gone viral today.
Right.
It was the most memorable thing. The sound of that shirt ripping, like, So I'm curious, do you both have people you find inspiring that you just say, I really admire that person because of how they look or how they train or what they're doing? Where do you find your inspiration?
I guess I'm very careful about watching that because I don't want to compare myself. So I can't really say there's one person that I can remember who they are. You know, like I said, I see things in passing. I'm like, oh, that's great. But I'm really focused on me and what works for me because I know what works for someone else may not work for me, especially where I am in my life. The surgery, my age, there's so many other factors that come into play that I try not to compare myself in that way. So there's no one I could say fitness-wise. There are other things about people that I admire, but the fitness part and what their body looks like, I try not to judge them or not even judge, not judgment, but, you know, I try not to, I look at the whole person maybe and not focus on that as much. I know it sounds strange.
No, it doesn't. It's you against yourself.
Right.
Yep. How about you? I know you recently did like an Army or Rangers training program. So were you getting inspired by those Rangers or what? Tell us.
That actually was inspiring. Yeah. I went up into the mountains and trained with the Army, and we were hiking up mountains and roping down a mountain, and that was very challenging. I think these days, because I'm always looking at the next step ahead, if I'm on Instagram and I see like a father with a lot of responsibilities and he's also in shape, I think that's very admirable because, you know, you have children, you're worried about taking care of others, being responsible for more than just you, and you're still making time for you at a high level. I think that's very admirable, and I think that's inspiring.
I love that answer.
That's a great.
That's a really great answer. Really
wait
is.
a minute. You know.
Okay.
No, Train with Joan.
She's amazing.
Isn't she amazing?
I mean, what's
she's like
she,
75 something,
Yeah.
77.
Oh, yeah.
She's
She's amazing.
Yeah. You know, and how she showed her weight loss journey.
Yeah.
You know, in fitness journey, how she, you know, she was carrying some heft there.
Yeah.
And like totally
transformed.
turned it around. I
Yes.
mean, when I see her, I'm like, geez, she's got some legs I want to have.
Arms, back,
Yeah,
everything.
yes, her back.
Yeah,
I mean,
she looks
everything.
amazing. And she turned her health around because she had diabetes or something like that. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it was, but something like that.
Yeah.
And now she doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. It's interesting when I see, you know, some of the older guys like Mark Sisson or, you know, some of the ones that have been around a long time, you know, that, yeah, I really agree. I really admire because so much more goes into it. So much more goes into it. If you were going to tell your 20, let's say 20, 24, 25-year-old self, You know, you're coming out into the world on your own. You know, you have, I mean, you've had less of a journey, so that's a 10-year look back for you, and it's, you know, 30, 35 look back for you in years. What would you say to your younger self about the phases of life you're going to go through and how you want to play it for the long haul?
In terms of just anything?
Your health, your balance in life, like literally or figurative, you know, balancing things out and being healthy and appreciating your body. And I always say you know, if we all had a Ferrari, that would be the most beautiful thing in the world. We'd clean it. We'd, you know, make sure it was perfectly, had the right fluid in it at all times. We'd really watch out for that car. But meanwhile, these are our Ferraris. We were given something far more superior than a Ferrari, which is an awesome car. But there's never going to be another Angelique. There is never going to be another Ryan. You are a one and only, a one of a kind. So what would you have said to your younger self or someone younger, knowing you want to live that long haul in life? Because people say, oh, I'm at 50, I'm halfway through. Well, as we were talking earlier, I don't know too many 100-year-olds that I want to pop into their body. But we want the best, most healthy body for the longest period of time. So what would your retrospective advice be?
Oh, I think because I've been working out since my 20s, and I'm doing that. I've been doing that part right. I think I would have, if I could go back, I would appreciate where I was more. I would appreciate being that size 6. Because back then I'm like, I want to be a size 8. I always wanted to be something else or something more than what I was. And I think in your 20s and 30s, appreciate where you are.
Yes.
You know?
That is such good advice.
Because, yeah, appreciate where you are. I would appreciate it where I was more.
Mm-hmm.
If I was talking to myself or someone similar to me, I would tell them to give yourself some grace and forgive yourself. I've never had a problem with trying to work hard at something or trying to achieve something, but there's been a lot of times that I've been so hard on myself, or I felt, oh, I should be more muscular, I should be leaner, or I should be further in life. Maybe I shouldn't have spent money on that, or I shouldn't have done this last night. And I've wasted time beating up myself, to where I think it's important that we remember, give yourself some grace, forgive yourself, and tomorrow's a new day. Mm-hmm.
Those two answers were fantastic. I'm not sure I can say anything to wrap up other than say, wow, really good answers. You know, it really is. It's funny how you look back on life and you say, oh, if only I realized that I was, you know, it was good. It was good, but you're always trying to get to that next level, or you're not appreciating just how fabulous you were. And you are. So, okay, well, I'm going to be sharing right below in all the content here. You know, you can watch this as a video. You can listen to it as an audio. You can grab all of Ryan and Angelique's info right below on whatever podcast channel you're listening to this. And I really highly recommend you follow their social media accounts. I'm telling you, inspiration on a regular basis. It really works. So thank you. We have about a minute each. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to this audience to give them that inspirational kick in the arse to get them going?
I guess speaking to women my age, or 40 and over, it's never too late, and you're never too old to start a fitness journey, a wellness journey. It's never too late.
That's great reminder.
Some good advice. I would say keep working, even if you stumble. You know, just figure out a way to keep going, and you'll get there.
Excellent advice. This has been a really fun discussion. I really enjoyed that I got to spend this time with you. Angelique Miles, Ryan Harden. You can find them both on Instagram or on your local TV or in a magazine. You just never know where these two are going to pop up. So I want to thank you all for watching. I'm Dian Griesel. This has been the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. And I really hope you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, share this episode with your friends, and inspire others. Thanks a lot.